Well, thanks for joining us today on the Big Blue Podcast. I'm Leigh Goodson, and I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Stone. Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. We're here at the McKeon Center for Creativity at the Metro Campus. Our guests today are Mark McMullen, Tulsa Community College's Chief Financial Officer, and Gary Madole. Did I say that right, Gary?
You did.
Awesome. Okay. The Follett Regional Follett. You say it Follett. Follett. Okay, I'm going to start that over. And Gary Madole, the Follett Regional Manager for TCC's campus stores. We will be talking about changes coming to the campus stores, and we're very excited. The day is Monday, right? Well,
transition starts Monday.
Yeah.
And
We'll be
today
open
is
April
Thursday,
9th.
March 29th.
Yep, we're recording on the 29th.
We're recording on the 29th, so it's coming up. But we're going to ask both of you just a few questions about the transition. We know people are both excited and anxious about it at the same time, and but I think it's going to be a really great move for our faculty and our students. So, Mark, talk to us about how the college made the decision to outsource the campus stores, and what were the variables you were thinking about when you were making the decision, and as we discussed that with our board, and what was the goal that we were trying to achieve?
Sure. So the main thing for me when we were talking about the decision to outsource was all about service. It was all about providing service to our students and our faculty and staff. And so when I look at my different departments, I'm always looking at ways to improve service or to improve efficiencies or effectiveness. And so I thought it prudent to start looking at what an outsourced environment may look like for our bookstores. We've been in-house for 42 years, and so thought it would be good to see what that looks like. And so we comprised a task force of 10 folks, 5 faculty members, a dean, a provost, a student government association rep, and myself, and our chief technology officer, Michael Siftar. And we listened to a lot of presentations, and again, through the lens of service, what could provide service for our students, what could provide service for our faculty. And it was a pretty clear-cut decision after all those presentations that Follett was going to be able to provide that high level of service that our students need and deserve, as well as providing better options for books, including rentals and a huge used book program, and more affordable pricing. And so you add all those up, and it made the decision pretty clear which way we should go.
Yeah. And some money that Follett's willing to invest in upgrading some stores as well, right?
Absolutely.
Gary?
Yeah, Follett has agreed to help us remodel some current stores out of their own pocket to just bring that level of excellence up to where it should be.
So, Mark, how will you know that the transition's been a successful one?
For me, a successful transition has a couple aspects. The first being one, that any student that comes to any bookstore when they are beginning their semester would be able to go to the bookstore, have an affordable book on the shelf ready to go. So if we can ensure that all of our books or students can get their materials on day one, that's a success. The other aspect is just a more efficient, a more convenient, a more effective way for faculty and staff to requisition their books and to order their supplies and their different materials. So for me, success is two-pronged. The students having their materials at a great price, and then faculty and staff being able to order what they need in a way that's convenient and effective.
Gary, we've been independent or had our own stores for 42 years. Is that right, Mark?
I threw that
42,
number out
43.
there.
Must
It's
be.
been a while.
It's been a lot.
No. Well, since 1970. That's
Yeah.
all. Who's
So
the
it's
math?
been-
I'm not the math major in the room.
Well,
so
it'd
somebody
be
else can do the number.
48. That would be 48.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean,
That's
if we had a
correction. Yeah.
bookstore,
If we had a bookstore.
if we had bookstores on the day the college was open, it
Yeah,
would be
that's true.
48. So, But this is the first time that we've had somebody else manage our bookstores or have their bookstores on our campuses. So TCC has a long history of sort of a family feel. And so you can imagine there's some people kind of going, well, what's it going to be like? There'll be Follett employees, but they'll be on TCC campus. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? Talk to us about Follett and talk to us a little bit about your career with the company and what you like about it, and just kind of what, from a cultural standpoint, from a corporate culture standpoint, what you think we can expect as the TCC family as you come onto our campuses.
Sure, and in the meetings that I've been to with Mark, one yesterday and one today, and just all the ramp up with the transition, the family feel you talk about, I see that. Mm-hmm. It's very evident. And one of my favorite things about this whole transition is getting to know the people at TCC. Really great people. With the IT, all the way from Follett getting their systems hooked up with TCC systems, so our IT people working with Mike Siftar and his team, and they've just been awesome to work with. They've been over backwards to make us happy and get everything accomplished that we needed to. One thing that you asked Mark how he would know it is successful is when my answer would be when we get everything up and running, and you mentioned your team, the campuses are worried about what it'll feel like. Mm-hmm. Well, it'll feel the same. Mm-hmm. They won't know. Most people will never know that it's Follett running the store because we're not going to put Follett out on the
right.
the sign up above. It's TCC campus store, and that's the way we want to leave it and operate it. So that's that. As far as Follett goes, Follett's a 140-year-old company, still family owned, based out of the outskirts of Chicago, and just started off as just a book wholesaler 140 years ago, and kind of a sidebar. So it was C.W. Follett and a gentleman, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Barnes. They did this together, and they started their wholesale textbook business together. And Mr. Barnes, he decided he wanted to do something different, so he went off to New York and
and
found
Mr. Noble.
Found Mr. Noble somehow. And anyway, started Barnes & Noble.
How interesting.
And Mr. Follett stayed and started his book company. And then some years later, after they started the wholesale company, then they started their first college bookstore at Wheaton College outside of Chicago.
Wow.
And so it's gone now from that one to over 1,200 stores.
And still family owned.
Wow,
that's impressive.
So we hear frequently about the family would like to do this, the family would like to see this, and that type of thing. So it's really a privately family-owned business. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
What have you done with Follett? What's your career been like with them? We were talking about this actually a little earlier today here at Metro Campus.
Right. So I was a store director at the University of Oklahoma for 17 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Big store, too. Mm-hmm. One of your larger stores, probably?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. And so I was from 96 is when we became a Follett store in Norman. So I've been through that transition that your campus store associates are going through now, where not knowing what's going to happen and all the rumor mills and everything and things like that. So since 96, I've worked for Follett for 22 years. And so I continued as the store director at Oklahoma until 2007, and then I became a regional manager 11 years ago this summer that I've had this position. So I have 30 stores. I have all Follett stores in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas, and so that keeps me busy.
That does keep you busy. You're on the road quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Greg Stone, and I'm here with Dr. Leigh Goodson, and you're listening to the Big Blue Podcast. Our guests today are TCC CFO Mark McMullen and Follett's Gary Madole, and we've been talking about this transition to new management of our campus stores, and maybe just briefly talk about what the organizational structure looks like. One of the things, and I was the token provost on the review team looking at presentations.
The token provost.
Much more than token.
I've never heard of a token provost.
It's my own label.
Chosen.
My own label. But one of the things we talked about that was in the college's requirement was that we would maintain our current full-time employees, for a minimum of a year.
Yes, sir.
And nearly I would assume nearly, if not all, of our part-time staff are remaining as well. If any of them are leaving, it's not because of the transition necessarily. But Gary, maybe just briefly tell us what the organizational structure is, and then also maybe share a little bit more. You alluded to this a little earlier about what you've learned about TCC since you've been working with us to make this transition happen. Maybe kind of briefly talk about both of those
Sure, I
things.
can kind of tie all that together. So David Brown, who currently is the assistant store director as a title, he will become the store director Monday over all 4 campus stores. Below him will be an operations manager. His name is Chris Bradshaw, and he's a seasoned Follett guy, great operator, knows Follett's rules and regulations and how everything works systems-wise. So we thought it was wise to have him come in, and he'll be a layer underneath David Brown, still over all 4 stores. And then the 4 campus store managers that are currently, they're all staying in place, which we love because we love continuity, and they're all excited for what's coming down the pike as far as learning some new ways to do things, and they've been just exceptional to work with. And so once again, it comes back to TCC and the family feel to things, and I feel that in the bookstores and the managers that are in place. For instance, Brett Hastings here at the Metro campus, I mean, he just has a pure love for the school. You can tell he loves coming to work here every day, and that's just infectious with his staff. It fires me up when I get to campus. I love working with him and people like that are happy all the time.
And the students can see it?
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Yes.
And the staff can see it, and that just trickles on down to whoever's in the store. So, great people.
Good.
That's wonderful. So I want to kind of pivot just a little bit, Mark, since you're here. I'm just going to, because you're here, I want to take advantage of this moment. And Gary, we are so excited about you all joining us here at Tulsa Community College. We went through a really thorough process and really have heard nothing but positive feedback about both the process and the presentations. And Mark, I just want to say publicly, heard a lot of great things about how you went through this process, and have already heard positive feedback from our bookstore employees. So I want to just say thank you for submitting the proposal to TCC, and we're really excited about it. But Mark, while we have you here, because you're the CFO, right?
Yes.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I am. Everybody's watching what's going on with the legislature, and this podcast will be posted either
Early in April,
probably April 3rd or April 10th, one or the other. We're recording on March 29th, but we have this impending teacher walkout. So we may be on a teacher walkout day or not, and we know that they are spending a great deal of time on how to fund K-12 at the legislature. What are your colleagues talking about is going to happen with the budget come next year? We know everybody's gotten their baseline budget,
Right.
and I think that the baseline budget has been a process that, from an administrative standpoint, most have appreciated because it really acknowledges what has already happened and gives us an opportunity to plan for new things without quite the labor that zero-based budgeting does. But talk to us about what you're hearing.
Sure. So from a state standpoint, what the kind of Council of Business Officers, so the university CFOs and the community college CFOs have been talking about, is to plan on about a 2.5% to 3% additional decrease in state appropriations for next fiscal year. Again, that's very preliminary numbers, but to your earlier points with the uncertainty with K through 12, we feel it prudent to at least plan on additional decreases. That, however, shouldn't affect TCC as much as maybe some of our counterparts, because we have fantastic people doing fantastic things, like Eileen Kenny in enrollment management. Our enrollment is much stronger than some of our counterparts, and we continue to realize nice growth there, or less loss than some other counterparts, as well as our state appropriations. So our local appropriations from the county continue to remain strong. So those two other avenues of revenue, enrollment and local, should easily make up any deficit that comes in from the state. So TCC should be able to remain strong and remain vibrant and financially stable.
And really all the efforts that are being made, not just in enrollment management, but the things going on in the classroom through
Section management.
Absolutely. And some of the efforts we've had with co-requisite and the successes we've seen in some of the retention as a result of the various curriculum changes we've made. Co-rec is just one that I mentioned, Greg. You may have some others that you're more easily able to cite, but there have really been efforts across the college, every campus, every department regarding retention, because we all know it's easier to keep a student than it is to get a new student.
That's absolutely correct.
And so, and then we're always grateful to our Tulsa County voters because they are so supportive of the college, and that local appropriation is something that we can't thank our citizens enough for. But I think that is a positive outlook that we can share given some of the stress that's going on the news. Again, very preliminary, right?
Right.
Things can change in either direction,
They can change
but we feel
tomorrow.
prepared. We feel
Absolutely.
prepared.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're watching things, and everybody across the college has done a great job of stewardship and really focusing on retention. So thanks for that update.
We just have a minute or so left, but in that time we want to ask you both the big question that we ask all of our guests, which is if you could go back in time and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would that be? Gary, let's start with you.
Make connections.
Network.
So when I got out of high school, I was the shyest person. It was just not my nature to walk up to a stranger and talk. And I have two boys, and I made sure that they weren't like me. And but make connections when you start class. When you go to college, introduce yourself to the faculty, your professor. Let them know who you are, and when you have problems, go talk to them. And I didn't do that, and things would have been so much easier if I just made some connections.
Mark, what about you?
I would tell my 18-year-old self, don't be afraid to fail.
That is really good advice.
There you go. I think I could take that now, too. It's my 37-year-old self.
I was thinking of my 50-year-old self, but okay.
Yeah, don't be afraid to fail, because once you become afraid to fail, then you become afraid to try. And then you just live with regret. So, and then I would also tell my 18-year-old self, don't take that trip to South Padre.
My goodness, this sounds like the last podcast that we recorded.
There have been a number of secrets revealed at this table today, but let's move on with that. You've been listening to the Big Blue Podcast. I have no secrets or regrets, by the way, that I'm going to admit to. We want to thank our guests, Mark McMullen and Gary Madole from Follett. We're looking forward to that transition, Gary, so thanks for the good work. And Mark, thank you for your leadership on helping to make this happen smoothly, too. And thank you for listening. Remember that you can catch the Big Blue Podcast each week in the Week at TCC and on the Creativity channel at YouTube, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.